from all of this, I'm bulletproof. Nothing to lose.
Yellow, beautiful people, what the heck is up? Another week, another round of football, another thing I'm forgetting to do before we get started, some actual lights. Let's go. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I know Brian's already in here. I know people are going to get in here. Slowly but surely. We'll get there. How are we doing, people? How are we doing? We got some stuff to talk about. Most notably football, because that's what we do here. But we're here to talk about it all. You got stuff you want to talk about? Let me know. Let's get into it, man. We are doing it live. Let's go. First things first, we're just going to go ahead and start with it. NFL Week 2 in the books last night. Great slate of games, as always, in the NFL, right? We're going to go through all the games real quick and see the scores, talk about the games. And yeah, let's just get started here. Thursday Night Football. Eagles hosting the Vikings. Eagles win 34-28. Now, I won't lie, I thought this game wasn't going to be as close as it was. But Kirk Cousins did a great job. He had 4 touchdowns, passed for 360-something yards. I mean, there's this whole primetime Kirk Cousins shtick. He doesn't do it when the lights are the brightest. You just can't get it done. He did everything he could in this game, I think. I mean, what more could you ask from him? No interceptions, 4 touchdowns. Sounds like a pretty solid game to me. But Eagles get the win at home. They move to 2-0. They are top of their division. And Vikings move to 0-2 after losing to the Bucs in Week 1. Everyone expected them to lose this game against the Eagles, though, realistically, right? I don't think anyone was really genuinely surprised that this was the outcome here. But great Thursday night game. I mean, let's be honest here. This was a very solid game. And yeah, Eagles, I don't know if they took their foot off the gas or if they just, didn't quite play to 100%, but they haven't looked at their best yet. Against the Patriots in Week 1, they didn't really, seem to have it all together. Same with the Thursday night game. They played good. They played good enough to win, obviously, but, they just don't look as good as they did at the end of last season, making it all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm sure they're going to figure it out. Being 2-0 at the start of the season, you're not going to ask, how well did they play? You're going to ask if they win, and they did. So, good on them. Let's see how they do next week. Moving on to the Sunday slate. First up here on the list, we have Falcons playing host to the Packers, and the Falcons getting the win by 1 point, 25-24. I did not think the Falcons would be off to a 2-0 start, I'm going to be honest. But they're 2-0. Good on them. Most of these games I didn't really see much, just because, a little bit busy on Sunday. Can't watch every single highlight from every single game, right? But the Packers losing this one, I figured they would have lost to the Bears in Week 1 and then win this game, I think. But they did the opposite. So a 1-1 start for the Packers. I mean, not necessarily a bad result. I mean, Bakhtiari was out, so that's obviously going to hurt their offensive line. And traveling to Atlanta is not, an easy task, right? I mean, look at the Cardinals going to Washington last week. I mean, they almost got the win. Wait, that just completely went against what I was saying. Anyway, look at the Commanders going to Denver. Again, that's completely against my point. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Anyway, Falcons get the W over the Packers. They start 2-0. Every single team in the NFC South, except the Panthers, is 2-0. The Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons are 2-0. I don't think anyone could have bet money on that one. You'd be crazy to think that those three teams started 2-0. So kudos to them. Moving on, we have the Raiders traveling to Buffalo to play the Bills, and they get stomped 38-10. Now, to be fair to the Raiders, they did start the game with a monster drive to go up 7-0. And as a Bills fan, I was nervous. You see you go down 7-0 early, and you're like, oh no, maybe this, there's going to be one of them years where we just regress and things don't pan out this season. But we were very quickly led astray of that thought, and the Bills come storming back, and they never looked back, beating them by 28 points. At home, you're supposed to be getting the business done at home, and they got the business done at home. And with the Raiders projected to be one of the worst teams in the AFC, very solid win. Get the boys back on track and head into next week with some positive vibes and some good feelings. We got the Ravens winning away at Cincinnati 27-24. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, it's the safe bet, it's the safe take, but no one's really worried about the Bengals being bad this year. They've gotten to a slow start ever since Joe Burrow's come into the fold. So them losing this game doesn't necessarily surprise me. Losing two AFC North games against divisional opponents and the Browns and the Ravens, not great. That's going to put you on the back foot when it comes to tiebreakers and stuff early on. But like I said, it's early. The Bengals, they always seem to kind of start slow and then slowly work their way. I mean, last year they were 0-2 and then finished the year 13-2. That adds up to 17. So yeah, and having a 13-4 season, no matter how you slice it up, is a good season. So starting 0-2, they might not go 13-4 like they did last year, but they're still going to be a playoff team. I don't think anyone's really worried about it. If we get a couple of more weeks in and they're struggling, and shoot, Lord forbid, they're 0-4, 0-5 or something like that, then maybe it's time to hit some panic buttons. But I think we're good for now. I think everything's going to be all right. Moving on to the Seahawks beating the Lions in Detroit in overtime, 37-31. Man, if the Lions defense could just get a little bit better, dude, they could just get a little bit better, then this team would be unstoppable, because 31 points against the Seahawks is a solid game. 31 points against anyone is a solid outing, and they just weren't able to hold them. They take the loss in overtime, Geno Smith to Tyler Lockett, and yeah, man, I mean, this I saw a stat historically. I think this is the third time in a row where the total number of points is like, what would it be, over 65? I think that's 3 games in a row, which means very entertaining football, right? So, both teams now sit at 1-1. Both teams, I think, make the playoffs potentially. The Seahawks, I don't think they're as good as the 49ers, but they'll definitely be second. Well, maybe not definitely second in that division anymore, but the Seahawks, they proved it last year that they can play. I think they're going to continue to prove it this year still, and I think the Lions win that division. So I think both these teams are playoff teams, so that would be fun to see them in a wild card or a divisional round game, something like that, to see them kind of duke it out again, be another high-scoring event. That would be fun to watch in the playoffs. But tough loss for the Lions. They had the Barry Sanders statue unveiling, which is a sweet statue. That was awesome. You saw clips everywhere of Tim Robertson being in the stands. Obviously the creator of I Think You Should Leave. A very weird show, but definitely has some pretty funny clips in it. I can't lie. Pretty awesome. But there you go. Both teams 1-1, and we'll see how they go moving forward. We got the Titans playing host to the Chargers up next, with the Chargers losing in overtime to a field goal, 27-24. Chargers 0-2 to start the year. Titans 1-1. Man, I mean, again, 24 points isn't a bad game, but it's a tough one because you've got like Brandon Staley now. Rumors are that he's on the hot seat and that his seat's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And realistically, the Titans, everyone expects them to have a down year in comparison to the last few seasons. But who knows? I don't know if this is just one of those, it's the Chargers' first away game. And traveling, there's a stat out there that West Coast teams traveling to the East Coast, or the Eastern time zone, farther east, is just, the record's terrible. So maybe this is just a case of one of those where everything's really just kind of stacked up against them, and, they just can't get it done. I don't really know exactly, but, starting 0-2, I think no team has started the season 0-2 and come back to win the Super Bowl. I think I'm right in saying that. So, who knows if the Chargers have what it takes to get there. I don't necessarily think they do anyway, but, tough loss for them. The Titans start 1-1, and who knows, maybe they make a push for this division now because of a game we're going to get to here in just a second with the Jaguars losing. But before we get to that, we're going to go to the Buccaneers beating the Bears at home 27-17. Baker Mayfield is back. I'm convinced. You can't tell me otherwise. And the Bears, I'm not calling the Bears dead yet. Siri, I didn't ask you, Siri. Anyway, I'm not calling the Bears dead just yet. I know some people are. I know some people say that Justin Fields is going to officially a flop and that they should take a quarterback in their first overall pick that they're going to get this year because they're going to go like 2-15, something like that. It's tough because, like I said last week, after week 1 and everything like that, I don't want to say anything definitive until we're at least 4 or 5 weeks into the season. But then in the same vein, it's like, what do I talk about, right? So, who knows? But I just can't call the Bears dead just yet. But the Buccaneers look good, man. They look solid. I'm a Baker Mayfield fan. I'm coming out and saying it. Ever since he's gotten to the league, there was a stigma of him being like the slightly more relaxed version of Johnny Manziel, and it's really hard to argue that. But he's just got the charisma and the self-confidence almost, while also being a really good teammate. I enjoy watching him play. I enjoy how he acts around his teammates and things like that. So I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's having a solid season. I think he keeps it up, especially being in a weaker NFC and an even weaker division. Who knows? I thought that they would come dead last, I think, earlier on before the season started. But now I'm starting to buy in. But like I said 2 seconds ago, we're only 2 weeks in. We got to wait and see how this stuff plays out. Who knows? But what I will say, moving on to this next game, is the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, man, and they're not going to go away lightly. Chiefs win over the Jaguars 17-9 in Duval. I mean, definitely not the best game for either of these teams, and definitely one that is just kind of we're going to chalk it up to how I see it. I think we're just going to chalk it up to 2 really competitive teams, 2 teams that are definitely going to be there for, obviously, their divisions, and then maybe even make a case to come out of the AFC. But, I mean, 2 really good teams. The defense showed out in this one, which was kind of strange for me. I don't think the Chiefs' defense is all that great. But, I mean, the Jaguars just couldn't put up any points. So, who knows? Obviously, Patty Mahomes bouncing back, getting 2 touchdowns, and throwing for over 300 yards. I mean, the dude's just unreal. He just got his contract restructured. So between now and 2026, he's the highest paid quarterback, I think. And then after that part of his contract, because he's got 10 years, and the contract lasts longer than 26, but they're going to come back to see if they can rearrange it again after that season. So the dude's just going to end up with like $2 billion probably at the end of his career. But yeah, just one of those games where it's just the way I see it, two good teams fighting hard, and one team had to win, and it was kind of sloppy. Maybe it was the heat, maybe it was the tough crowd for the Chiefs, and the Trevor Lawrence just not being able to figure it out. Although I say that Christian Kirk had 110 yards, so we'll just chalk this one up as a tough game for both teams, move on, and go from there. Heading down even farther south, I think Houston's farther south than Duval. I know Jacksonville's in the northern part of Florida. So we're just going to say that, and I pride myself on my geography, so I think I'm good on that one. But the Texans would probably not be proud of this performance, losing to the Colts 31-20. Anthony Richardson balling out, even though he does he leads the game with a possible concussion or definite concussion, I don't remember. But I mean, having 2 touchdowns and scoring 31 points on the Texans. I mean, this was a game where the Colts kind of needed to win, because if the Texans won, you would probably say that both of these teams are about the same. Because they were in Houston, you could argue the home field advantage would be just enough for the Texans. These would be 2 evenly matched teams. But I mean, beating the Texans on the road by 11 points, I think is a testament to how good the Colts can be here in a couple of years. Obviously, Richardson leaving the game for the second week in a row is probably the last thing you want. Hopefully he comes back next week. I mean, concussions are very finicky. It could take him a couple of hours to kind of be all there again and be good to go and everything. Or it could be a couple of months. Like sometimes concussions are just strange like that, where you see a replay of a hit and you think, oh my gosh, this guy cannot be back on a football field for like a couple of months because that was a crazy hit, and he's good to go for the second half, one of those things. Or you see him as like someone kind of barely grazed his chin or just hit him in an awkward way, but it didn't look too crazy, and then they're just gone. You don't hear from them for a while. So hopefully Richardson comes back soon. He's definitely an exciting quarterback to watch. So yeah, I hope he comes back soon. And who knows where this takes the Colts. I mean, they've got Gardner Minshew as backup, I believe, and he balled out whenever he got in there. But yeah, hopefully the Colts can recover with that and get going, because I mean, who knows? They've got the same record as the Titans and the Jaguars. I'm not saying it, but who knows? Moving on to the San Francisco 49ers, essentially playing a home game in LA against the Rams, winning the game 30-23. Scoreline is a little skewed because obviously the Rams were down by 10 with a few seconds left, and then they kick a field goal so they can officially cover. A lot of people that are gambling people were definitely happy with that, for sure. But just so weird seeing SoFi Stadium with so much red and so many 49ers fans. It's almost like LA doesn't actually enjoy watching football. I wonder if the Rams possibly playing somewhere else would have still been a good thing. I don't know. I don't know. Just a thought. Maybe if someone wasn't so greedy and money hungry, the Rams would still have a good fan base. But I'm not saying anything. 49ers win. Brock Purdy plays like Brock Purdy. Christian McCaffrey balls out. And the 49ers get a solid win away from home against a divisional opponent. 49ers 2-0, Rams 1-1. Again, I didn't expect them to beat the Seahawks last week. So maybe because this is a divisional game and the Rams were home, and they kept it close, so maybe the Rams aren't as bad as we think. I mean, they got this Puka Nacua guy who is crazy out of nowhere. Everyone that plays fantasy should pick him up if you haven't already. Little Jebs, yes. I ain't saying nothing. You can't tell that I'm from St. Louis or anything, can you? But yeah, the Rams, maybe they're a half decent team. Who knows? But that's enough for that one. We'll move on. We'll stay away from all of that. The Giants. The Giants. My goodness, going down 20-0 in the first half against the Arizona Cardinals, one of the few teams who were expected to be the worst team in football. It was not looking good there for quite a while. Luckily for the Giants, though, they do come back. They get the insane comeback win, beating the Cardinals 31-28. Saquon Barkley, he balls out there in the second half. Unfortunately, he goes down due to injury. It's a lower ankle something, I think, sprain. So there's rumors the head coach is saying that he might play this coming Thursday. That would be very ambitious, I think, because I don't see that happening, turning around from 4 days and recovering from an injury like that and still playing 100%. Maybe he dresses, maybe he plays, but I don't see them using him as much as they would, or him performing as good as he should for being a starting running back, being a star running back. So great win, absolutely needed that comeback. If they started 0-2 in the fashion that they would have gone 0-2, that would have been very disappointing and very upsetting for them. So solid win for the Giants. They're back on track now. Maybe they get some much needed momentum from this and move forward in a positive fashion. Team that is not going to have any positivity for the rest of the season, I am convinced, are the New York Football Jets. They get crushed by them Cowboys 30-10. Cowboys look unreal. They are easily one of the favorites out of the NFC already. You got the 49ers and the Cowboys. Really, the Eagles, they're 2-0 as well, like I said earlier, but they just haven't really played as good as they can. So the Cowboys, on the other hand, are flying on all cylinders. They are the real deal. So far, Dak Prescott is doing really well. Seems like he does every single regular season, and then things toward the end of the season and then the postseason kind of crumble apart. So we're in that season we're in that part of the season where things look extremely good. And I don't really know if things will slow down for them. It's some people say it's better to start slower and then progressively get better. And then other people will say, you have to start hot so you can continue to be hot and then, go on to win the whole thing. And, however they get it done, as long as they can get it done, then we're going to be fine, I think, for these Cowboy fans like good old Brian here in the chat. How about them Cowboys, baby? I'm still not convinced that they can go on a deep run just because of certain people. I don't want to be a Stephen A. Smith repeater or anything like that. But, I mean, he's not lying when it comes to that. When it comes to Dak Prescott, he does really well in the regular season. Maybe has a couple moments where you'd be concerned. But, when it matters most, when the lights are on the brightest sometimes. But yes, I definitely agree, Brian. The Cowboys are the real deal right now. And I don't think they have any signs of slowing down. I mean, who do they have this week? They got the Cardinals this week. Yeah, they're going to be fine. Another team that might actually be fine this year, the Washington Commanders get the dub in Denver over the Broncos, 35-33. Now, obviously, the best moment from the game is the Broncos being down 8 at the end of the game and Russell Wilson throwing up a prayer and it being tipped around a couple times and caught for a touchdown to bring them within 2 and then flopping the 2-point conversion. Now, I won't lie, I've only seen the play 2 or 3 times, so I'd have to go back and kind of watch it maybe in slow-mo. But on that 2-point conversion, the receiver that Wilson was throwing to looked like he got interfered with, and quite clearly. So you could argue that there was a penalty there, but then again, you could argue there's a penalty on darn near every single play in a football game, wherever you're playing said football game. So, I mean, definitely some cause for concern there with that missed call, potential missed call. But how about Washington, dude? They're solid. They're looking really, really good, and they've definitely got a tough division with the Cowboys and the Eagles in there. But who knows? Maybe we get 3 teams from that division sneak into some wild card spots, and that division kind of takes over. Obviously, with the new ownership and everything like that, there's a whole new buzz around the team. So, things are only looking up for the Commanders right now, and they look good. And then to round out the Sunday slate, the Sunday night games, we have the Dolphins traveling to New England to play the Patriots, where they get the W 24-17. Now, the lateral play there at the very end was a big topic of debate here over the Monday and Tuesday here. You watch the replay, and I think by the letter of the law, he's the Cole Strange, number 69, shout out, is just barely short. And it really sucks because he's so barely short that the call on the field was a first down. You might as well just give it because it's so close that you could argue that there's no definitive evidence. But nonetheless, they call it back. It's a turnover. The Dolphins end up winning the game. And the Dolphins' offense just looks so good, dude. Tua is back. As long as he can stay healthy, I'm convinced that he can be one of the best quarterbacks this year. And obviously with that, two-pronged receiver attack with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert as the back there has just proven himself to be a stalwart there in that offense. I don't see them slowing down much either. They're solid. I think McAfee on his show today said that he thought or maybe it was Monday, that the Dolphins and the Cowboys are the two best teams, and that would be a Super Bowl. And it's kind of hard to argue that one, honestly. I mean, you could maybe throw in the 49ers. I don't really know if there's anyone else from the AFC that you could throw in there as of the moment. I mean, the Ravens are 2-0, but did they really play that great against Houston? They've just barely squeaked by the Bengals. Nothing too extremely dominating for them. So we'll see going forward. But this Dolphins offense looks unreal. Then moving to the Monday night games. First off, we've got the Saints beating the Panthers 20-17. Again, Saints being one of those teams that are 2-0 there in the NFC South. Again, who would have thought that? Absolutely crazy. Panthers, Bryce Young, didn't look too terrible, and the Saints get a solid away win. Not really much to say on this game, honestly, for me, just because Monday night, last night, I was busy playing softball, so kind of had to miss both of these games, unfortunately, which was annoying because I've said it before. I grew up in North Carolina for a few years, so I got a soft spot for the Panthers, and a good buddy of mine is a big Steelers fan, so I try and pay as close attention to them as I can, and they don't seem like a bad team this year either. But yeah, we'll move on to the other Monday night game here. Saints get a good win over the Panthers. The Saints are kind of the favorite going into the season to win that division, so a solid win, especially on the road against a division rival. Great win. And yeah, the Steelers beating the Browns 26-22. Steelers win it late. TJ Watt getting a fumble recovered for a touchdown. Very cool. Obviously, Nick Chubb falling down to a terrible knee injury is not good. I mean, I don't think they showed any actual replays on ESPN, maybe one. But yeah, that footage is just so sad to see, man. It's just devastating because you see his knee basically does this, and it does it the opposite way of what it should. Your knee's supposed to bend like this, not like this, and and he did it again. He did it earlier in college as well. I mean, it sucks for the guy. I wish nothing but a speedy recovery for him, and that he can return and play just as good football as before, because that's just a sucky injury, man. Just not fun at all. But yeah, those are the NFL games that just happened over the weekend. We got some good games to predict here in just a little bit. But real quick before we do that, we'll kind of go over the college football games. First off, Missouri, where I'm from, getting a huge win over Kansas State, the 15th best team in the country at the time. Solid win over K-State, leaving it to the last second field goal. 61 yards, SEC record. How about them Tigers, baby? M-I-Z. Unreal win. Missouri, maybe they're back. They barely beat Middle Tennessee the weekend before. So, not the greatest wins before this weekend, but beating K-State, you know, that's a solid win. Real quickly, we'll go through all the other ranked games real quick. Miami crushing Bethune-Cookman on the Thursday. I've never heard of them before, but hey-o. They got to play Miami, I guess. Georgia beating South Carolina. Not as dominating as you would have expected, maybe. But, regardless, that's just a good win for Georgia. Michigan beating Bowling Green, of course. Florida State struggled against Boston College. Honestly, Boston College could have won this game if they didn't give up, I think it was 18 penalties in the game, and a lot of them were very costly games. So Boston College could have done something awesome there. I can't remember the official name of it. It was like the Red Bandana, or it was the Red Something game, in honor of someone that was on the football team or someone that attended the college that was tragically killed in the whole 9/11 incident. So that would have been really cool for them to win that game. But nonetheless, they unfortunately lose that game. Texas beating Wyoming, no surprise there. Same with Ohio State over Western Kentucky. They beat them by 53. Very solid win there. Penn State over Illinois, solid win for them. And obviously Illinois losing is a good thing for a guy like me. Washington going to Michigan State and winning 41-7. Obviously, Michigan State firing their head coach over the last few days over some allegations that are so ironic and so crazy that it's almost comedic. Notre Dame beating Central Michigan. Notre Dame's got a solid visit to Ohio State. Is it at? No, it's at Notre Dame. So that'll be a great game. Alabama barely beating South Florida 17-3, and they traveled to South Florida to do it. Man, it's hard to call Alabama dead until they lose like 3 or 4 games, but my goodness, they have not gotten off to a hot start. Florida getting the upset over Tennessee in the swamp. How about them Gators, baby? It's a very solid win for that program, and maybe Florida slowly getting towards being back. Utah gets the dub over Webster State, of course. Same with Oregon over Hawaii. LSU beating Mississippi State. Oregon State over San Diego State. These are all solid wins for ranked teams. Ole Miss over Georgia Tech. Very solid. Probably one of the games of the week. Colorado winning in double overtime to Colorado State. Wow, what a game. Fans rush the field, and Colorado gets another win, moving themselves to 3-0 against a Colorado State team who obviously everyone underrated because they were expecting Colorado to win. I think the spread was 23 points. Obviously that wasn't the case. Henry Blackman, I think it's Blackburn, with the pretty egregiously late hit there on Travis Hunter that lacerated his liver, sent him to the hospital. Definitely not a good thing to see, right? Deion Sanders earlier today came out and said, he's like, look, man, everyone's okay, everyone's fine. There's no need to be sending death threats to this kid, which realistically, I don't care what sport you love, what players, what teams you love. There's really no room for that ever. Trust me, I am as passionate and as vocal as it comes when it comes to the teams I support and the teams I love. But realistically, there shouldn't be any room for calling someone to die. I mean, you see the Blues jersey over here. One of the biggest memories for me, old school, early 2010s Blues Blackhawks rivalries. You guys like, David Backes, Alex Steen, and these heavy hitters going up against the likes of Brent Seabrook, Andrew Shaw, Duncan Keith, guys like this. And when those guys get physical with each other, gosh, I can't remember if it was Duncan Keith or Brent Seabrook. I think it was Seabrook that, basically knocked David Backes out unconscious, our team captain. And at the moment I was like, I can't stand this guy. I hate him, but there was never room for, I never thought once like, this guy needs to die because of it. And at the time, this dude is like in his late 20s, early 30s. This guy, Blackburn, is like 19, 20 years old. Like, that's going to mess with him, man. And, there's no room for it, personally. Colorado State made some noise and said, hey, we're not as bad a football team as you think. Hopefully, at least, hopefully they can take that momentum turn into a positive season, even though they got an 0-2 start. But yeah, a very exciting game. I wish it finished earlier because being in Central Time Zone and the game ending at like 1 something in the morning is just crazy. But nonetheless, Colorado gets a solid win and they move on. Oklahoma does the deal over Tulsa, of course. North Carolina over Minnesota, of course. Duke over Northwestern, of course. I hope Northwestern has an awful season because of things that happened to them early in the year. Because, of course, Washington State beating Northern Colorado. UCLA beating North Carolina. Iowa beating Western Michigan. Just some solid ranked wins for these guys. We're still in that early point in the season where, most of these big name teams are just going to get the job done. So there you go. We're moving on to this weekend with the college football real quick. How about that Mizzou record kick over? Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. SEC record for Mizzou to beat K-State. What a win, guys. What an absolute win. Just, yeah. I said earlier that, like, this spring I desperately wanted to get out to see a Mizzou game this year. I don't know if that's going to happen. Hopefully it still does. But I probably wouldn't have picked that one because it was against K-State, and K-State is always, there and thereabouts around the top 25. So just a great win for them, though. Very exciting. Hopefully Mizzou can take that win and just, skyrocket them in the SEC coming up. But real quick over the ranked games this week, there are a couple ranked opponents going at it this week, so this is going to be a fun weekend of college sports. Michigan over Rutgers. Michigan wins that easily. Florida State over Clemson. Might be a closer game than some would think, especially after week 1. I think Florida State gets the job done, though. Oklahoma over Cincinnati. Oklahoma should win easily. Colorado traveling to Oregon. Number 10 Oregon against 19 Colorado. This is obviously going to be the biggest test for Colorado and Deion Sanders. I'm convinced that this is going to be a very close game. Oregon is a 21-point favorite against a team that's ranked only 9 spots worse than them in the country. So I don't buy that spread. I think Colorado keeps this a very close game. I don't know if they win. I'd be tempted to pick Oregon to win that game, but this is going to be probably the best game of the week to watch. Although I say that, I'm looking at some other ones, literally the next 2 games here, and I could be eating my words very quickly here. UCLA traveling to Utah, 22 versus 11. Utah's at home, so they probably get the job done over UCLA. But, I mean, how about the Pac-12 as well, by the way? Just unreal. It's such a shame that conference is essentially imploding after this season with so many teams leaving to other conferences. But such as life these days, unfortunately. But yeah, I think Utah beats UCLA pretty handily. And, they get that job done. But maybe another contender for Game of the Week, number 15 Ole Miss traveling to number 13 Alabama. Now, Bama's obviously 2-1, ranked higher than 3-0 Ole Miss. So, obviously, who's going to play for Alabama as a starting quarterback? They've had 3 different guys go, and all 3 of them have not looked the greatest, at all. So, that's going to be interesting to see who takes the quarterback spot there at Alabama. I am very tempted to say Ole Miss wins this game. Because, Alabama just doesn't look like they've got it yet. Maybe they figure it out in practice this week, and then this weekend they get the job done, and Nick Saban, does his thing, and he gets a good win. But honestly, until Bama proves that they've still got it, I'm going to pick Ole Miss in that one. Duke over UConn. Duke wins that easily. Miami over Temple. Miami easily. Tennessee, that number 23 right there. They win at home against UTSA handily, I'm sure. Number 12, LSU taking on Arkansas. They win that easily. Number 21, Washington State. Let me get that out easily. Taking on number 14, Oregon State. DJ Uyunglele proving that it wasn't his fault at Clemson. Obviously being the 14th best team. Maybe they get the job done at Washington State and his revenge tour continues. But that'll be a fun game. Florida sneaking into the top 25. They are at home to Charlotte. They win that game easily. Georgia against UAB. Easy win for them. Texas over Baylor. Big game there. And Texas wins. Sorry, I say big game. I meant for this one. Number 6, Ohio State traveling to number 9 Notre Dame. That's 3 games of the week that I'm saying already. I mean, holy moly. But Notre Dame gets the dub over Ohio State. I think because they're at home, but this is going to be a very fun game to watch. Number 24 Iowa going to Penn State. Iowa, obviously, they have to score 25 points a game or else their offensive coordinator gets fired, but I don't think they score 25 in this one. I think Penn State wins easily. Number 17, North Carolina over Pittsburgh. At Pittsburgh, I think North Carolina wins easily. USC over Arizona State. Traveling to Arizona, but Arizona State's not that good. So I think USC gets it done. Washington at home to Cal. I think they win that game easily. So there's the college football stuff for you. So without further ado, I think it's time to get some predictions in for the upcoming NFL week. So let's do it. NFL Week 3 games going on right here. And straight up, we're going to go with the Thursday night game over here, and then we'll end it with the 2 Monday night games. And, yeah, we'll go from there. So, yeah, we'll start with the Giants playing at the road against the 49ers. I mean, this is a very easy game to predict. San Francisco gets the win quite easily. I don't see them having any issues with the Giants, at all. So I think the 49ers win very easily, and nothing much else to it. We'll go with the Titans and the Browns next. The Browns at home, obviously just coming off a very tight loss to the Steelers. But, yeah, I don't think they have issues with the Titans, especially being at home. I think they're going to get the job done quite easily, and they won't have to worry about that at all. So they get the job done there, and Deshaun Watson, maybe he balls out again. Who knows? It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough with them without Nick Chubb, but I think they'll figure it out quite easily, especially against the Titans. Jaguars playing host to the Houston Texans. I think the Jags just had a down week last week. Texans put up a good fight against the Colts, but they weren't able. Or they were trying to make a comeback after going down early to the Colts, but they just didn't have enough. I think the Jags bounce back quite easily, especially being at home, and they get the job done. The Ravens playing host to the Colts. I mean, obviously it's going to come down to whether Anthony Richardson plays or not. I think the Ravens win the game regardless, but I think the Colts will put up a much bigger fight if they are able to have Richardson play. But we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. The Dolphins, home against the Broncos. And really, the Broncos just can't figure out how to win, and the Dolphins' offense is just so good. Dolphins win this game, I think, quite easily and move to 3-0. Patriots going to the Jets. Now, this probably wouldn't be as close of a game if not for a certain someone getting injured. So this might be a closer game than one would thought a couple of weeks ago. So it's at home. The Jets are super good at everywhere but the quarterback position, realistically. And the Patriots just, they've slowly, they put up a great fight against the Eagles, came up just short. They put up a good fight against the Dolphins, came up just short. So maybe there's questions on if they can figure it out and win games. But I'm going to go with the Jets. I think they squeeze out a win only because their defense and their offense minus Zach Wilson gets it done. But we'll see. We will see. The Steelers-Raiders game is the Sunday night one, so we'll come back to that. The Bills traveling to Washington to play the Commanders. This is probably going to be a closer game than we would have thought, similar to the Patriots-Jets game. I'm going to go with the Bills because they looked super dominant against the Raiders last week. And the Commanders, yes, they did get a great win against the Broncos there in Denver, but with how close it was, you would think, you got a couple of questions there. And the Bills, you see it, Bills fan, my heart's going to lead me astray with them a little bit, I think. And, they're a good team. They're a good team. So the Bills win. Now, this next game, the battle of the teams that probably shouldn't be 2-0 but are and need to get right now. Obviously, with this little thing right here, you can see the Vikings came off a mini bye, obviously playing Thursday night last week. So they got just a little bit more rest than the Chargers do. So this will be, again, with the Chargers, they were against the Titans in Tennessee last week. So I've heard of teams, staying in like the same time zones if they have 2 away games back to back and they're like across the country. So I don't know if that's what the Chargers are doing or not. If they're not, I would almost like guarantee the Vikings win. I think the Vikings win. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback, and the Chargers, they just can't. They haven't won a game yet, and neither of the Vikings, obviously. But the Vikings are at home. They're a solid team, and the Chargers, they just don't look like they can close out games yet. So I think that is how it goes. The hot seat for Brandon Staley gets a little bit hotter, and the Vikings slowly turn things around, potentially, maybe, who knows. But we will see with that one. The Chiefs playing host to the Bears. Need I say anything else? The Chiefs lost a close game to the Lions week 1. They were able to bounce back and beat the Jaguars here this past week. It was a closer game and maybe not as good of a game as some of us were expecting. But the Bears just don't look good. And until I'm proven otherwise, I don't really think I can, pick the Bears for that one at all. So Chiefs win that one. It might get ugly, and they go back to being above 500. Rams traveling to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. Now, before the season started, I would have instantly picked the Bengals to win this game. But with how good the Rams played against the 49ers, even though they lost, and obviously beating the Seahawks week 1, and the Bengals losing pretty badly to the Browns in week 1 and losing a close one to the Ravens last week, I don't know, man. This might be a very close game. But I'm going to pick the Rams. I think the Rams win. I think Joe Burrow, he re-aggravated his calf a little bit, what people are saying from Sunday. Him and Jamar Chase haven't really meshed well yet this year. And yeah, I think the Rams, they've proven that they're better than some of us thought. So I think the Rams go into Cincinnati and they get the win. That's probably going to be the upset. Maybe not even the upset of the week. But that's going to be a fun game to watch, I think, because especially if Joe Burrow's fine and he starts to heat things up. But the Rams, they've got some good weapons, and Matthew Stafford's not going anywhere, obviously. He's been good so far. So let's see. The Falcons play the Browns. The Falcons play the Lions. I have no idea where I got the Browns from there. My mistake. Falcons being 2-0, maybe it's a little bit of fool's gold there. But, they beat the Packers, and the Packers don't look like a joke this year. But who knows? Lions obviously look good. Unfortunately, losing to the Seahawks this past week in overtime. And the Lions are going to want to get right in this one, so I think they're going to win this game. I think the Lions are objectively better than the Falcons, and the Falcons are traveling to Detroit to play the Lions, so I think the Lions will win this game. Sometimes you just have to break it down to as simplistic as possible and just say, all right, this team is just better than this team, and the better team is at home, so I think they get the job done. Saints-Packers, very solid matchup. I don't think it's as simple as the Falcons-Lions to just say that one team's better than the other. But, maybe the Packers aren't as good as we think because they beat the Bears pretty good, but then again, the Bears lost pretty good last week to the Buccaneers. So maybe the Packers aren't as good as we think they are. And the Saints, they haven't completely convinced me that they're a solid team, but they're 2-0. So they are traveling to Lambeau to play in Green Bay. This is a close one. It's a toss-up for me, but I think I'm going to go with the Packers. I think they win this game. I think they bounce back from a very close game against the Falcons there. They barely lost to the Falcons in Atlanta, so I think that plays a little bit of a factor. I have this thing in my brain where home teams just have a much better advantage because they're at home. I don't know if I should be thinking like that, but I just do. So I think the home field, Lambeau Field, just gives that little extra juice to the Packers, and they get the win over the Saints. Panthers, Seahawks next. Now, I've picked the Panthers to win their first 2 games, and obviously they haven't. So I am not letting my heart dictate what I want to have happen. The Panthers are traveling to Seattle to play the Seahawks, who are a better team than the Panthers. Yes, they lost to the Rams in week 1, but they bounced back and beat a good Detroit team in Detroit the next week. Yes, it took overtime, but they still won. So I have to go with the Seahawks, just because they're a solid team. That's just the only way I can look at it. I tend to overthink things sometimes with these picks, so I just got to keep it between the ears and just keep moving forward. So then that leaves us with the Packers. Wow, let me get my teams right. The Dallas Cowboys playing the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. Now, obviously, because I would love to have happen, the Cardinals win this game. There's just no way that they do. The Packers are just a great team. They're just so dominant in every aspect of the game so far this year. So they just get the job done very easily over the Cardinals. There's really not much else to it. And then we have the Steelers and Raiders for the Sunday night game. I just realized that the LA Cincy game is a Monday night game. They got 2 Monday night games again this week. That's interesting. Anyway, we're doing it live. And yeah, Sunday night, Steelers, Raiders in Vegas. So maybe there's a little bit there, but the Steelers, they've put on a good show against the Browns last week. I think they get the job done against the Raiders. Maybe I'm just putting a little too much bias in the fact that they were not supposed to be a good team coming into this season. But the Steelers' defense is really good. I think the offense is slowly figuring it out. Slowly. It's very slow, but I think they're figuring it out. And the Raiders, I just don't think they'll have enough and have what it takes to win that game. And then finally, one of the Monday night games, apparently, the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay to play the Buccaneers. Obviously, you can see that the Eagles are coming off one of those little mini buys, similar to the Vikings last week, because that was a Thursday night game. And they're traveling to the Buccaneers, where they are 2-0, and Baker Mayfield and crew are looking very solid. I would not have expected them to be 2-0. I think I predicted Tampa Bay to be dead last in this division. But alas, they are 2-0 and looking really good. So I think I still have to pick the Eagles. Like I said earlier, I don't think that they've figured it out fully just yet. But, I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl last year, and they've won 2 games where they haven't looked their best. So hard to argue with that one, really. So I think the Eagles get it done there in Tampa Bay. I think they start the season 3-0, and they go on cruise control from here. So those are my week 3 picks. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Who's winning, who's losing, who's going to have a great week, who's going to have an awful week. And yeah, those are my week 3 picks. So we will wrap that up. Let's just kind of go back over here to where it's just my lovely face. Some other quick news before we wrap up the show here today. The biggest one out of any other sport that's not football is Mike Babcock and the Columbus Blue Jackets parting ways, with reports coming out last week from Paul Bissonnette and the Spit and Chicklets crew there over at Barstool, coming out with some reports that Mike Babcock, the brand new head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, formerly head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs a few years ago, and then before that, the Detroit Red Wings, before that, the Anaheim Ducks. I don't know if there were some teams in between all that, but very reputable coach, very successful coach, won a cup in Detroit. But it came out a few times along a couple of those stops that he has been doing some fishy things. So he had been let go from those previous positions. Now he comes into a Columbus team that, you know, as a organization haven't had the most success. Bringing in a veteran coach, potentially turning things around. But he gets fired before the preseason even starts. Why? Because, well, it was alleged by Bissonnette and crew that Mike Babcock had been going through players' phones and looking at pictures and text messages and things like that. Just trying to get to know them is what they the Blue Jackets came out and said just the same day or the day after all this allegations came out. And it was weird because Mike Babcock and the captain of the team, Boone Jenner, both came out and said, like, yeah, we met, and Babcock asked to see the player's phone and just kind of see pictures of their family so they could get to know them better, is pretty much what the reports were coming out from the team. But the more and more this kind of was happening, the more and more people spoke out to the Spit and Chicklets guys and go into social media and saying, like, no, this is more than just that. This guy is trying to get power over these players by getting dirt on them and seeing how they act and stuff like that to try and have one over on them. Just a scumbag move. This past Sunday, it was announced that Mike Babcock is stepping down. He's resigning from being the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets before the preseason even starts. So obviously there's some truth to all of the allegations because he's no longer there. So, I've never really had much of an opinion on Mike Babcock before. I didn't really know of all of the previous stuff that had happened before all this stuff came out. But obviously now knowing all this, not the greatest of looks, not the coolest of guys, to be honest with you. So I'm glad he's out as the head coach because, it's one thing to coach hard and to coach tough, but it's another to just totally manipulate your young guys. Because most of these people he was doing it to were guys that were just drafted or like guys in their late teens, early 20s. Like, come on now. These guys are kind of going to do whatever it takes to stay in the league because the NHL is the best hockey league in the world. So sometimes, things happen where people can manipulate others. I'm looking at you, Chicago, for what you did earlier on in this century in the early 2010s. Again, not throwing any shade, but not great. So just there's no place for it. It's not cool that these people think they can get away with stuff like this. So I'm glad he's out. I'm glad he's gone. And we are approaching the NHL season, which I'm very excited for. I can't wait to jump back in. Even though my Blues are probably going to stink this year, we're going to be fine. We just announced Braden Shen as our new captain going forward, which I am so pumped about. I'm definitely getting a Braden Shen captain jersey. That's just got to happen. So yeah, hockey's fast approaching. Basketball is fast approaching. Baseball, the postseason's coming really soon. Shohei Ohtani is out for the rest of the season because of something to do with his elbow, I believe, is what it was. So, obviously he, messed up his elbow a couple weeks or a couple months ago pitching. So, he's a free agent this year. I hope he gets out of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So, we'll see. I hope he gets out. Not my captain, Brian. Daddy Bennington. Okay. Okay. I mean, it's just not something you see. You just don't see goalies being captains, like, at all. I think Ryan Miller was a captain for the Sabres back in the 2000s. But I don't really... I mean, Carey Price was a captain. Patrick Waugh, Marty Brodeur. Bennington's not captain worthy. I'm sorry. He's just not. It was really the only two people they could have picked really were Braden Shen and Robert Thomas, and I don't think they were ever going to go with Robert Thomas, but that's just my opinion. I was glad that they didn't go with Robert Thomas, but it's not football. It's not football. The Champions League started today. Let's go over some of these scores real quick. I saw that Milan and Newcastle drew. PSG beat Borussia Dortmund 2-0. Leipzig over Young Boys, easy. Red Star losing to Man City, of course. Barcelona putting 5 up on Antwerp. Who would have thought? Probably everyone. But yeah, this is so annoying because I get done with the topic and then 15 seconds later you put something in the chat, Brian. I gotta figure out if I can shorten that time span. But yeah, Ohtani's out. That's such a shame. He's a great ball player. Hopefully he recovers and he can play to start of next season. Obviously, I hope he becomes a St. Louis Cardinal, but the Cardinals organization is absolutely trash. They're straight garbage. And yeah, I don't expect them to be good for a little while. So, thinking about certain things to talk about, but I'm not finding them somehow. I know, right? That is what I am saying. But, yeah, see, there it is. Yeah. Been going for an hour, so that is more than likely going to conclude our stream for this week. I did notice I don't think anyone is left, but I did notice, outside of you, Brian, obviously, it said at least 3 concurrent viewers. So thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. We're hopefully going to slowly start building this up and getting more and more people in here every single week, and more lovely people to talk to and chat to. But we're going to wrap it up there for the day here. So whether you are watching this live or watching it back here as the whole sort of podcast, live stream, whole deal, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new around here and you want to see more. I'm going to be doing this every single week for all of the football games and hopefully even farther into the future so we can talk about all kinds of stuff. I greatly appreciate it, y'all. So until next time, I will see you later. Take care and peace.